New Joker film. A great film, or is it propaganda? As usual, there will be spoilers. I repeat, there will be spoilers. But you know, I have to always set the scene before I give my reviews. Anytime I was asked about this publicly, I made sure to always drop a disclaimer about the fact that there's a chance that I may dislike the movie. Because of director Todd Phillips expressing some sentiments that I do, really some similar sentiments, about the far left, as well as just leftists being dramatic about the release of the film. I didn't want people to get the idea that I was going to be biased to it. I was going to automatically enjoy it. In fact, I did a video addressing some of Todd's comments when he said that he didn't care to really reference the source material, and I criticized him on that, though some people have told me that he recently clarified those comments. They were sort of taken out of context, and he did actually refer to some of the source material as far as influence for this film. I had to be fair, but that certainly wouldn't stop me from being critical of it. Though Joker is one of my favorite villains, he is such a recognizable figure when it comes to like pop culture and being Batman's most notable villain. But simply calling a movie Joker and throwing makeup on like Phoenix would not be enough for me. That would never be enough for me. I needed and expected the movie to at least feel like the character. I don't expect it to be exactly like the comic book. No, I don't. But I do expect it to at least feel like the character. Otherwise, there's absolutely no point in calling it Joker, other than to just capitalize off the branding. After all, this is what I criticize some of the Marvel depictions of their characters in live action films for. So I cannot be a hypocrite, and I'm not a deranged MCU stan that hates to see anything DC does, or more so, they don't want to see DC do well because they think that it threatens their little precious baby. But I'm not a contrarian either. I'm just a comic book nerd, and you guys expect that sort of perspective when it comes to this channel. Let me briefly go through, I guess, the plot line for those that have no interest in maybe seeing the movie. This movie is centered around a guy by the name of Arthur Fleck. He's a literal clown, an aspiring stand-up comedian as well that takes care of his mother. Now, his mother is a little loony and sends letters to Thomas Wayne, who you know is Bruce, aka Batman's father. And each time Arthur comes home, he checks the mail, seeing if he wrote back. Now, Arthur is a bit of a loony guy too. He's on medication, which is what you'd expect from a guy that's going to become the Joker. Now, on a job, he is jumped by some kids in the beginning of the movie, and a sign is taken from him. A fellow clown gives him a gun and tells him that he needs to protect himself. And that's when things really, I guess, get interesting. Now, along the way, Arthur actually kills 3 guys with a gun who were messing with him on the train. Also, Arthur learns by reading one of his mother's letters that she didn't just work for Thomas back in the day, which is what sort of she told him. She says that she had Thomas's kid, which would make Arthur Bruce Wayne's brother. Upon finding this, Arthur goes and visits Wayne's residence, where he has a brief chat with his supposed brother, only to be interrupted by Alfred. Later, Arthur visits Thomas at a show confronting him, and that's when Thomas states that his mother is crazy and that he himself is adopted. So you can imagine this emotional wreck that he is. So he goes and visits Arkham Asylum, where his mother was at one point there. And after seeing the records, it confirms that he actually was adopted and he was abused as a kid. So he ain't Bruce's brother. She's just crazy. So, of course, that sends him down this rabbit hole. After a failed sort of stand-up routine that he had, he's invited to Murray Franklin's show, who Robert De Niro plays, where he actually kills him on live television. Arthur kills Robert De Niro, or Murray Franklin, on live television, and we end the movie with him in Arkham Asylum. I purposely left out a lot of things on purpose. I was kind of all over the place with that brief description because I'm going to mention some of these events here later. But this is where I'm at with this movie. There have obviously been other live action Jokers, but you still have an expectation. This is what made Heath Ledger's Joker so good. It's because when you saw it, even if you did not read the comics, you had no clue, maybe you just watched some cartoons or somewhat, it was a convincing Joker. But the nerds like myself had also been convinced. The problem with Jared Leto's Joker was that it was just like a modernized Joker that didn't feel like Joker at all. He just wore the name. He rocked the name. I think Ledger sort of ruined it for everybody because he did so good. But I'm here to say that Phoenix's version is a solid depiction, believe it or not. And it does feel like the Joker. The thing that made this movie more difficult is that they are more so tackling an origin film. And though Joker doesn't really have a set origin, the most convincing, the most ran with is, of course, him being sort of a former comedian, fell in some chemicals. That's how his skin is white. He also was formerly of the Red Hood. Again, failed stand-up comedian in those depictions. And that's the route that this movie sort of goes with, minus the Red Hood. And in tackling his origin, you have to not only make this make sense, right? But you have to convince me that the person who was once just a guy becomes someone as iconic as the Joker. What could send someone down that path, right? And Arthur's backstory does just that. They didn't run from the idea that he's the Joker. Though he does give you that feeling that he does inspire maybe other people. Make no mistake, by the end of this movie, he is the Joker. He calls himself the Joker, and it's believable. His laugh, which is perhaps made more prominent by Mark Hamill, is due to a mental illness in which he laughs uncontrollably, even if it doesn't make sense. He even carries around this card so he can explain it to people why he's laughing his butt off. So that's taken care of, or that portion of Joker is taken care of. But how he interacts with the other characters is what makes this a believable Joker backstory, even though aside from maybe Thomas and Martha and Bruce and Alfred, none of the other characters really in this movie come from the comic books. We start off with him being in a tough spot and things just get tougher and tougher. He was already loony, remind you, from the get-go. Beginning of this movie, he's already sort of this guy that has issues, right? And you consider the lies of his mother, who he eventually kills. He kills his own mother. He's sent over the edge, right? Or maybe it's the gun that his clown buddy gave him that sort of does that. And he kills that guy too, by the way, because he threw him under the bus to his boss, and that's what ultimately got him fired. Aside from his mother and I guess this midget clown, who he did let live after he killed the guy that gave him the gun, you get a sense that nobody else cared about Arthur. Now, there was this chick that lives near him that he shacks up with, but it turned out that he was just seeing things, right? He was imagining that. This also got me thinking about what else he was seeing in the process. And though I can see where you feel sympathetic because he kills people that were messing with him, it's not over the top sympathetic, and you never really get the sense, even though he's the main character, you never really get a sense that he's a hero, especially by the end when you see the others who have been inspired by them, or been inspired more so by the Joker, which is almost what makes the ending near perfect. Not perfect, but near perfect, because you do see the chaos that's a direct result of his actions. And to me, that's what I think about when I think of the Joker. Not just a guy who wants to make Batman's life a living hell, but a guy that creates these sort of chain reaction bits, these chaotic chain reactions. So while the events aren't necessarily pulled directly from the source material, it's more of a newer story. Aside from the stand-up bit, his attitude is captured. The essence of Joker is captured. This is bare minimum what I have an expectation when I see a comic book based film. I don't want a guy running around with the name and branding of a character but acts nothing like him or her. I'm not trying to hear that it's a different universe crap. This movie at least seems to respect the legacy of the character as far as his attitude and gives him a convincing backstory. One event leads into another. So, I mean, aside from that, it's just a a decent movie. But it wasn't too predictable. For example, Arthur was rehearsing his appearance on the Mary Franklin show, and it seemed like he planned to kill himself on live TV. That's sort of what he was rehearsing, especially when he earlier states that he basically has nothing to live for. But he doesn't. Instead, he shoots Murray on live television. And with that, he goes from being this invisible guy that didn't matter. He starts to realize that, hey, I'm a guy that inspires chaos. I caused this. The film isn't perfect by any means. However, I was a bit thrown off by that great age difference. And a lot of you guys made between Bruce and Joker. I didn't like that. Bruce is a little kid, the age when his parents died. And speaking of them, they are killed in the alley, just like they always have been depicted in terms of the source material. So that is reference from the source material. Even the guy, killing them and then ripping Martha's necklace. What happened in the movie, though, is that he did it after saying what Arthur said right before he killed Murray Franklin. You get what you effing deserve. But Bruce was mad awkward in his minor appearances and had zero emotional reaction when his parents were killed. You may like or dislike that, but when you think about it in context, him being like 30 plus years older than Batman is kind of weird. You may also get thrown off by how Thomas Wayne acts. His douchiness, maybe. Though even in comics, he's not perfect by any means. But also how artificial Joker's look is. It's all makeup. His green hair, something that's dyed at the end. By the end of the movie, he does look like the Joker, but it's because he made himself look like the Joker, no falling into some chemicals or anything like that. His voice kind of throws me off too. He sounds like just like the actor. This is one thing I noticed immediately. He sounds like the actor that plays Penguin on the Gotham show. That's how he talks exactly like that. But I think normies will like this movie and non-normies will think it's a decent enough backstory to enjoy it, even though it seems a little weird seeing some of that get played out. It's not as mysterious as you expect maybe from a Joker backstory because they're really diving into it. It's difficult to get over that age difference, at least for me, because there's no Joker without Batman, right? But let's talk about what could be taken as propaganda. When it comes to the gun control dispute that takes place in America, right? This movie could be ammo for the folks who want to come for people's guns. And I don't think Todd Phillips even meant to do that. Maybe he did. I don't know. But once Arthur is given this gun, he says, I'm not supposed to have this gun. As if to point to his mental illness. Then, when you consider the events that transpired right after he got the gun, this is the type of crap that leftists envision, right? But on the other side, it's self-detonating as well. And this is what I would come back with because he obtained it through illegal means, right? And no amount of gun laws would have stopped that. That was just something that I sort of picked up as I'm watching one event turn into another. But all in all, I was impressed by how well the movie was. I think it was good for a one shot. I may have had different issues and a different perspective had I known this was going to be part of a larger universe, but it works as a one-off. I'm usually not into that when it comes to one-offs in terms of comic books. And I'm not really even into these type of movies. This is more of a drama thriller type of movie, which works well in a Gotham setting. Don't go into it, though, thinking that it's going to be an action-driven film like other comic book movies, because it's definitely not. It is, however, a little bold, and I must at least commend the creators for paying just enough homage to the source material, even with the Wayne deaths, that I was satisfied. What about you? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you think that this is going to be a movie that leftists use to try to lecture us about gun control or toxic white male masculinity? What am I kidding? They're going to do that anyway. They don't need a movie. Thank you all for watching this review. Remember, over at my Patreon at patreon.com/EricDJuly, that's patreon.com/EricDJuly, you can become a patron of mine. And in becoming so, depending on how much you give a month, you get a vlog or podcast request. So to all those guys that always ask me, hey man, do you mind talking about this, and that? Just our Patreon, I'll talk about whatever it is that you want, and I'll shout you out in the video. Until next time, y'all be easy.